Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be going over the main card and my picks for the UFC Fight Night in Mexico on Saturday, February 24th. So, for the first fight, we have Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan, 11-1. Very strong prospect with a lot of hype behind him, and he won his last fight. And Manuel Torres, who is the slight favorite right now with 192 odds, is 14-2 with also a win in his last fight. They're both 5'10". However, it seems that Chris Duncan may be a welterweight that's dropping down to the lightweight division for this fight. So we see Torres has a 2-inch reach advantage, which is not really much, and they each have a 41-inch leg reach. Don't really know much about these fighters, but I'm gonna give it to. Actually, let's look at their grappling stats real quick. They both have 100% takedown defense, and so we see Torres with zero takedown attempts per 15 minutes, and 3 for Duncan. Let's look at their striking a little bit. Okay, so Torres is a much higher output fighter with almost 10 strikes landed per minute, where Duncan has half of that. Torres also has a 12% higher significant strike rate than Duncan, and their defense is relatively even, with Torres taking the slight edge. Like I said, I don't know much about this fight, but I'm going to take Torres. It seems that he's a much higher output fighter with a couple more fights experience, and also he seems to have a very good takedown defense. And we know that Duncan, he shoots around 3 takedowns in 15 minutes, so not a super high output grappler. Yeah. That didn't work out, so then I just tried to have it go fly. Next, we have Yasmin Uruguay and Sam Hughes. Alright, I don't really care about WMMA, I'm not gonna lie, so we're gonna skip that. Okay, now we have Raul Rosas Jr. Who is the youngest fighter in the UFC at the age of, was he 19 now? Versus Ricky Turcios. Let's take a look at this fight here. So Rosas is 8-1. He won his last fight. He is coming off a loss, relatively recent, though. A couple fights ago, I believe. We see Ricky with almost double the amount of fights of Rosas. So I think the experience is going to be slightly in favor of Ricky. However, I am going to give this to Rosas because I believe that his grappling is on another level. Because as we see here, he attempts almost 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. Or, excuse me, gets almost 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, and his accuracy is pretty good. And we see that Ricky Turcios does not have the best takedown defense at only 45%. So this is looking like a striker versus grappler matchup, and we kind of know who tends to win those, especially at the lower levels. It's usually going to be the grapplers. One thing that worries me about Rosas is he is quite a low output on the striking side of things. I know he's a primarily grappler, That's not a good look when you're only landing 1.28 strikes per minute, as opposed to 5 of Turkios. But I am going to go with Rosas because I feel he has a bright future in the UFC, and I think that the UFC is going to give him favorable matchups until he gets a little bit older and more developed. Next, we have Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado. And this is going to be in the lightweight division. So both these prospects are looking pretty good. 14 and 1, 12 and 1 respectively. So we have a bit of a height advantage on the side of the Zellhuber. Around 3 inches taller than a Francisco Prado, and a huge reach advantage, 8 inches, and also a slight leg reach advantage. So I'm going to give this, without even looking, I'm going to give this to Zellhuber. He is a Mexican fighter, which means his opponent's going to be definitely easier than a non-Mexican fighter on the Mexico card, of course. And that 8 inches of reach is going to be very, very hard for Francisco Prado to overcome. Let's look at their significant strikes, though. Yeah. And I have seen Zellhuber fight before, and he is a relatively high output fighter with over 5 strikes landed a minute, which is good. I like to see the high output, high cardio fighters. I feel like that's what you need to do as a striker to really win. So let's take a look at the grappling stats real quick, and we see great takedown defense. It's really hard. It's going to be really hard to take down this guy. He's pretty huge for the lightweight division. That 77-inch reach is going to be extremely hard to get past, and to actually get him to the ground. And he does have a pretty excellent BJJ as well, from what I've seen. Prado, I don't know much about him, but he looks like he's going to get absolutely mollywopped by Zellhuber. So I'm going to give this to Zellhuber by round 2 KO. Okay, now we got the good fights. So we got number 3, Yair Rodriguez versus number 4, Brian Testosterone Ortega. Alright, so immediately I'm giving this fight to Yair. He is an absolute beast. He did get beat up by Volk quite a bit, but he is one of the most exciting fighters in the featherweight division. He has an extremely high output. He kicks a lot, and his kicks are powerful, and they do damage. He is also very good at jiu-jitsu, and he has a great ground game. He was taken down pretty easily by Volk, but that's the featherweight goat Volk, so Brian Ortega's takedowns are not on the same level, even though his jiu-jitsu is obviously top tier. But the thing is that Ortega is absolutely going to get drowned by Yair's pace and his ability to mix up the strikes. Yair is great boxing, great kickboxing, and he's going to just keep the pressure going. And Soy Boy Jiu-Jitsu Ortega is not going to be able to do anything. His striking defense is terrible, as we saw in the Max Holloway fight. He has no chance of doing anything to Yair on the feet. And on the ground, I think their skills are, at this point, pretty much the same. Ortega is definitely the better grappler, but he is a little bit older, and he's slowing down just a little bit. And his striking is just abysmal, so I'm going to go with Yair by round 2 KO as well. I think he's going to keep the pressure on, and he's just going to keep coming, and Ortega is not going to be able to do anything about it. He's going to shoot for takedowns and get wrapped up. Finally, we have Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. So the last time these guys fought, Moreno knocked out Royval in the first round. However, Royval did have a shoulder injury, causing that fight to end early. So that's not the best indication of their skill sets. I really like Moreno's grappling and output on the feet. He's quick. His boxing is very good. He went to war with the current champion Pantoja for 5 rounds, and he arguably could have won that fight. I don't think he won the fight, but arguably could have. And also, he does have a longer reach than Royval, who looks a lot taller, but really is only 2 inches taller. So we got little T-Rex arms Royval over there. Royval, he just nothing. Watching his last fight against Pantoja, nothing impressed me at all. His grappling wasn't that good. His striking wasn't that good. He has absolute pillow hands on the feet. I know Pantoja's pretty powerful, but Royval absolutely looked scared, and he could not keep up with the wild man striking and power of Pantoja. Pantoja's not the most technical striker, but it still was way too much for Royval to handle. So, and then, Moreno obviously had a much better performance against Pantoja, in my opinion, and he is the much better grappler, in my opinion. Let's look at the striking. So, they both have similar outputs, actually the same. Significant strikes landed, same. Defense goes to Moreno a little more. Yeah. You can look at the grappling a little bit. So, yeah, Moreno definitely has the better takedown defense. It's pretty obvious in his fights. Royval's just skinny. Like, he's going to get tossed around by Moreno. He was kind of getting held down by Pantoja a bit. He's just not strong enough. He's just a little bit of a twig, in my opinion. Who's going to get ragged out by Moreno? So I'm going to go with Moreno by decision. I think Royval's going to fight a lot more carefully due to the fact he was KO'd last time early. So I do think this might be a little bit of a boring fight. Royval might be hesitant to engage with Moreno, and as he doesn't want to get KO'd or taken to the ground, where Moreno definitely has the advantage. Alright, that is it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to